All right, so the last thing we want to look at are the firewall and antivirus configurations on the machine itself. Now, these don't come into play too often on the capture the flag style events, but it's always something to look at because some of the harder ones actually do have firewall enabled or antivirus enabled. So we need to know kind of what we're up against, and it's always good to enumerate that. Even if you're in a real world environment, it's really good to enumerate that. So what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at the service control, and you're going to see this come up again in the course over and over. So the service control command is SC. Let's go ahead and drop down into a shell, and we can just say SC for service control. And let's say we want to just query one that we know, and I'm just going to say query, and I'm going to find out information about WinDefend. So if we say WinDefend, we're going to see information about Windows Defender. Why am I picking this? Well, we're on a Windows machine, and by default, Windows machines have Windows Defender on. Well, look, it's running. We know the state is running. So antivirus is up on this machine and running, but it's not doing a great job if you ask me. We were able to run Metasploit with a basic shell. We got in on 4444. So not the best, and this is Windows 7, so maybe there's some excuse there. Maybe it's misconfigured on purpose. We don't really know, but the state is running. Let's say we see it as stop, but we think that maybe there's something still blocking us. Some kind of antivirus is running on this machine, and we don't know what's going on. We can do a quick service query. We could say something like service control, and we'll do a query EX like this, and we'll just say type equals service. Now this is going to tell us all the services that are running on the machine. It's going to be a lot, but if we want to kind of search through here and see, hey, what's running? What am I up against? Like, see, here's Windows Defender, but you might see something like, I don't know, Sophos as an example. You might see some well-known antivirus running on this machine. You're going to say, oh, I'm up against that. Now I know what's there, and maybe you start looking into ways to bypass that, just as an example. Now, the last thing that we should talk about is firewalls. So firewall settings are important to look at too. So we want to see firewall settings because maybe there are ports open or only certain ports that we can navigate around. Maybe, as you'll see later, again, with the netstat that we looked at, maybe there's ports that we can utilize that are only internally open, and we can utilize those for some sort of port forwarding and use that to exploit a machine further. So there's a lot of cool little tricks that we can do, but we have to know the firewall configuration, especially if we're getting blocked on ports like 4444, which is really common to Metasploit. We might have to run something like 443 and pretend we're doing traffic over a web server, or maybe 53 and pretend we're doing traffic over DNS. Something along those lines. We got to see what's actually open for us. So what command we can run, the common command, or the modern command, I should say, is this netsh adv firewall dump. Now this isn't going to return anything, and that's okay. We are going to use a different command. This is a little bit older, but we're going to say firewall shows state. So either way, try both of these commands depending on the machine you're on. So this tells you what the state of the firewall is. You can see that it's enabled and that it's running the regular old Windows Firewall group policy version. So that's a little bit of information. Other information that you can gather is netsh firewall. We can show the configuration. And here's where we can look for like specific ports and things that might be open, or any sort of configurations that are in here that are special to this machine. So I'm not seeing anything crazy here, which is expected. We got in on 4444, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're doing enumeration, if you're up against a wall, something that might be sticking out. So something to keep in your back pocket. Again, this is going to be automated when we look at our tools, but it's always good to know the process manually and understand why it's doing it or why the tools are running it, instead of just firing tools with, no purpose behind it or no understanding behind it. So that's all this section was. And now that we're wrapping up, we're going to see how we automate it in the next section. So I just want you to have good notes at this point. If you didn't take good notes, please go back, watch these again, or even go and check out the resources that were provided. Jot down some decent notes on this, understand why we're doing it, and don't just go fire tools at this. So it's just a really high level overview for you to get the understanding. But now that you have the understanding, we're going to dive into the tools. So I'll catch you over in the next video as we start looking at different tools that we can utilize and make this process a lot easier for us.